The inflation of 2020 right through to 2022, what the World Banks are saying is that it's temporary because it was caused by the base effects, it was caused by the bottleneck of supplies due to COVID 19. And at first, they're saying that this will come to an end by the end of this year. Then Russia attacks Ukraine, and it looks like inflation is going to be long term. So you see your petrol prices go up, you see your egg prices doubling, then what do you think Singapore government should do to help the people in order to survive this inflation that's going to look like it's here to stay?
Let me answer that first. I think a good government, as much as they would want to make sure that Singapore stays afloat, primarily should look into the people first and see how they can save the people from suffering with all these so-called prices that just shot up the roof almost overnight. They should put a lot of instruments in place to make sure that things remain as calm or at least as normal as possible so that we would continue with our daily lives. The pandemic has caused so much issue in terms of pricing, in terms of costs slowly rising up, and with the promise of the conversion or the moment we cross over to an endemic, then everything will go the same. So with the Russian war, it looks like it is so all well placed. After this, then you have the war, then you have another one coming up, then you have another one coming up. So I am not certain whether this thing would end. But I think a good government should see what is required on the ground first to make sure that daily lives are not adversely affected by it.
I think the question is what can the government do and what can we do? But I think the question here is like what you mentioned, what can the government do? But more in terms of planning, we all talked about stockpiling, we talked about controls, making sure that the necessary essentials are there to manage any supply, demand fluctuations or bottlenecks. But there wasn't any thought about stockpiling, let's say, fuel. I think there is, but why do we let it still fluctuate? No, there should be a plan in place to ride out, these ups and downs or these global turbulent times. Then, like you said, I totally agree. First and foremost is your people. How can you help your people ride it out, better cope, rather than just pass on the cost? It's easy to supplier charge this, I pass it on to you. It reminds me of the price controls days, I think, prior to NTUC coming on board. I think, do we have the strength to control the prices? Yes, there is always a cost somewhere, but can the cost be mitigated through legislation, or can the cost be mitigated through internal supply, internal growth, stuff like that? I think then the question is, do we have any plans for this? Which apparently we don't, because the price just keeps going up.
But then again, you see, if you want to be a first world country, it has to be controlled by market prices. It's like you have first world people, you have first world infrastructure, so you allow market prices to be in control of your necessities, of your oil prices, of your electricity. Then when should the government come in, or shouldn't the government come in at all?
Why must we let the external forces market prices determine? We are a sovereign country. We can buy, we can sell, we can prepare. So yes, everyone is exposed to market fluctuation, but can we control it? Can we mitigate it? Because we all know prices will rise and drops. You have SIA hedging fuel costs. Sometimes it works. We all know when you hedge wrongly, you lose. But these are modern day mechanisms, that you can help. We all know that Russia was building up for months. We all knew that if they invaded, the price would rise. Could there have been effort to hedge or to have an agreement with the petrol prices, petrol companies. Hey, you will not raise it over this amount because you have already stockpiled. I think the key question we discussed just now was why the immediate price increase.
So Singapore government is so known to have, okay, I have these reserves here. I have to make sure that the food is enough for the people for the next 6 months, 5 months. I'm very sure that the all reserves that we have in our tanks in all these islands is not meant for 1 month or 2 months. It's for months to come, right? So when Russia attacked Ukraine, then the price shot up. So what? How does that fall into place nicely? It doesn't make sense, right? You mean our reserves are based on the war, or should the prices be based on the new set of crude oil that we import in? Because a lot of things are based, oil prices go up, so transportation go up, these go up, that go up, everything's go up, electricity goes up. Yeah, but the war is not even a year. The war is not even 3 months. So within this less than a month, everything goes up because of the war. How is it directly affecting Singapore? And speaking about first world countries, right? They all have natural resources, but Singapore is unique because the natural resources are the people. We are the creative exports. We are the creative people that brings in the revenue for the Singaporeans or for the Singapore government. So you need to look at us to make sure that we don't wither and die in this season of war and pandemic. If we remain resilient, we are being taken care of, we will continue to churn out the economy and make it healthy for the Singapore government. Spending is part of the GDP, right? It's part of growth.
Don't kill us. It's really, we are really coming out of the pandemic. Suffering, businesses are suffering, and yet we have to go through another round of inflation. Could be temporary, but a lot of companies are just struggling.
So do you think they should relook at the budget 2022 again? Because during the budget, they were announcing the increase in taxes. They were announcing the staggered increase in GST. Maybe do you think that the staggered increase of the GST should be pushed probably towards 2025 rather than do it now?
I think of course, everyone wants it to be pushed.
course.
But the key thing now is how can we better manage Singapore? Singapore as a whole, the cost-wise investments. How can we maximize all other options before taxing our own citizens?
Is Singapore really a place just meant for the rich and not for those who are economically not very able? How do we survive? It's like you being poor in a big city. It doesn't make sense, right? There must be instruments in place. You must think about the people first. What are the formulas? What are the models that you can use to make sure that our daily lives are not adversely affected by it? It's like you go, okay, please don't spend so much, eat less, diet, fasting. We can do all that, but the prices goes up. So how much of a diet that we can go eat less? Yes. Don't waste food. Yes, we can do all that, but the prices remains high.
Your $1 is worth less now.
What if now I can work? What if I am unwell and I can't work? So what will happen to the structure of my family economy? Who's there to help? We all need to survive here. Is this a place to live for everybody, or is it just meant for the rich?
Yeah, sometimes you wonder how Monaco actually works, because in Europe, Monaco is that small country only for the rich. So you wonder, is it only for the rich? Has Singapore become the Monaco of Southeast Asia?
Well, we have a lot of billionaires, right? The third in the world, right after Russia. Russia, Singapore, billionaires, so many. Have they thought about the rest?
Sooner rather than later, I think there'll be a very good sociological study to see how societies can function. I mean, there are talks where universal wages, I think we might need, I have not done my research, but can there be another model that Singapore society is built upon, given that we have 50 odd years of growth, of learning? Is that same model, foreign investments coming in, MNCs coming in, is that the best model? Can we be actively exporting more of our talents? I know we are developing a startup economy, startup industry, startup society, but can we find a way to grow more global businesses that the funds will come into us? I mean, I'm all for diversifying revenue streams, just so that we don't tax our locals, our citizens. Um, Everyone says Singapore is too expensive to get sick. You can't afford the hospital bills.
If you look into the model of Dubai, UAE, do you see any poor citizens there?
Only the foreign workers, the foreign talent that comes in.
The rest are being taken care of. If you look into a small country like Brunei, there's not much natural resources except for oil. Do you see the poor there except for the indigenous people, right? Which is also taken care of. So what about Singapore? How do we apply all these good models of economy back here?
I think the challenge would be meritocracy. We have built our society based on that. And if we were to introduce all these models, will it dampen our urge to work hard? I don't know.
Speaking about meritocracy, you must also remember that's also about seizing opportunities. The reason why we are sitting here compared to someone who's working 12 hours under the hot sun is because of the opportunities they have. One is for education, one is for proper living, right? We need to create that same opportunity for them under meritocracy. Then it will be a fair, justifiable one. If not, then we need to help them.
Didn't meritocracy actually start out trying to help them as well? Because if you work hard, you do well in school, you come out not copying what your father did, but doing much better, rather than creating a separate meritocracy for people who are not doing well.
So you're saying meritocracy is an enabler, is something that's fair, or?
Yes, because in schools, everyone come into schools and you don't wear your original clothes. Everyone has to wear uniform, and everyone comes in looking the same. So you don't really look like you're from the rich family or you're from the poor family, elite schools notwithstanding. So then it's like you are in the same class, you go through the same lessons, you study, you come out and you do your exams, and if you study hard, you do better than the next person who didn't study. So in a way, it's a leveler.
But I disagree on that. I mean, this just looks, you look the same. But if you look at the real school structure, I always ask this: why do we still need tuition? The tuition business in Singapore is worth millions of dollars. Why? Because parents still want the kids to work harder, have the opportunity, spend more time studying. Then begs the question, this all comes down to dollars and cents. So although the schools are a leveler, but what happens after school is, if your parents can't afford the extra tuition, the child is just left on his own. So that always asks me this question: isn't our schools teaching enough that we don't need that tuition, or is the schools just doing the basic and then leaving it to the tuition centers to do the value add? I don't know. They always say parents is your responsibility. The schools can only do so much. Character study is your parents. But that's why I say, I think I've not seen a study where we really look at the Singapore culture, the Singapore society. Everything seems to be working well.
Well, if you haven't reached that, then you might have all those perks. But if you're poor dad,
you don't have.
You don't have that luxury, and your upbringing is different. the dad doesn't have as much ambition, the dad is less informed on how to put son in a proper placement for competition, right? So that might not be a good game starter. But yes, wearing the same uniform, you are given the same playing field, but is it on the level ground?
Yep.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Coming back to the Singapore culture, now if you look at overseas, if oil prices, petrol prices are skyrocketing, you would see people taking to the streets, protesting. But in Singapore, everything is about acceptance. You know, you just not doing anything except maybe go to your keyboard, type on or your unhappiness on Facebook or on Insta. Other than that, there is no protests. You just wonder why Singaporeans are all accepting and it's like not exercising their protests or not exercising their unhappiness.
I wouldn't say, let's take it to the streets. Do you still want to keep your job or the station alive tomorrow for having fake news? How can you accuse the government of something which is not right? Do we have proof to say that things are expensive? Prove it. Do you have
Also, you're saying that we cannot protest because the protesters got no evidence. Is that
There
have no
is
proof.
The evidence is there. Look,
your
if
eggs are
you
double the
have-
price?
Yeah. Previously, I would only spend about $60 to fill up my car, the tanks of my car. Now, this time around, I have to fork out $150 for the same tank. Why? That's my proof.
But as a government, if I can justify why and you can't argue it out, then you can't win.
But I mean, that's where discussion like this is important. I mean, we can't protest on the ground. Even one person is considered a protest. But I think we need to rarely...
One person should not be considered as a
But it is.
protester.
It is.
But it is.
But the law has
Yeah.
changed
Yes.
strangely.
So the key thing is, I think, and I've seen the government responding to feedback. But it's now like what you said, why isn't Singaporeans giving feedback or constructive feedback? You know, and I think that's where this discussion is hoping to achieve that by highlighting concerns and highlighting the possible solutions. And the solutions that we have is, can or could the government or companies better protect fluctuation in costs, you know, so as not to have to pass on, because I mean, how many percent of Singaporeans pay income tax? Only about 20%. You know, the rest don't even meet the ceiling, the income tax ceiling. You know, so that's 80% of Singaporeans that don't pay income tax. Yes, because there are grants here, government gives you subsidies. So yeah, you include all of that, but that means that our basic majority of Singaporeans are earning very basic level income. But when that value drops because of inflation, and these are inflationary costs which are temporary, you know, could be logistical bottlenecks, could be war, can we help Singaporeans ride through this instead of, hey, too bad, no, this is happening, I have no control over the war, not my job. But I think as a company and caring for Singaporeans or people that you are elected or you are employed to protect or to serve, I think these are the thought processes, you know, like HDB, you know, your town council, you can't tell me, hey, sorry, the thing peeled or the flooring, the tile pop up. I say, hey, you're building HDB for the last how many years? You can't know that there's a chance of the tile popping. Where is the learnings and where is the future planning? Yeah.
In extension to what you propose, I think the government should work with the SMEs. That's about more than 90%. The rest are all MNCs. So the number of MNCs are very small. The SMEs, there's a huge number of them in serving different kind of industries. If they can work with all those industries and see how they can press the pricing down, the output should be cheaper because they give grants to the SMEs. I think we can somehow maybe hope that the price will be able to be controlled. But if the taxes to the SMEs are high, electricities are high, these are high, that are high, they have to survive, right? And the final output goes to the consumer. But if they can work hand in hand with the SMEs, all 90 over percent of it, I'm very sure certain industry you can suppress the price down.
I mean,
Buy local and be cheaper.
Yep. I think the COVID has shown us that the government can be flexible in
Yes.
terms of policies, in terms of taxation, in terms of budget, and that should apply to a non-pandemic, especially now when there's such high inflationary costs. So that is shown, but I've not seen a response yet to this current price increase.
I think the government has been kind throughout the COVID pandemic, and now we are moving to the endemic. But I think with the current situation with the Russian war, which I see no relation to us directly, they can be kinder. They are kind, but I think they can be kinder to Singaporeans at large, especially for those who doesn't even meet the basic income tax requirement. Right? I think
Now,
that
after all, we don't get our oil and energy from Ukraine or Russia, right? I mean, look, most of our oil come from Indonesia. So why the sudden? You can't say there is a bottleneck of oil coming from Indonesia. Then, because of the war, oil prices suddenly go up. That point I don't understand.
we are one of the biggest processing plants for crude oil. Shouldn't we be the chinke? We are controlling it. We get the crude oil, we process it, we can sell it higher, but Singaporeans get it cheaper.
Like
If
what we
you-
do with the water.
If you look at the
Malaysia.
neighboring countries, right, the locals can buy the petrol cheaper compared to the rest. If let's say you go across the causeway, right, foreign cars can only buy, let's say, 98 only, but locals can buy 95. Foreign cars cannot buy 95. It's meant for the locals. So why can't that be done? We are the biggest.
So is, correct me if I'm wrong, so Malaysia, Indonesia, is the fuel subsidized or is the tax reduced?
Fuel is subsidized. The fuel taxes are subsidized.
Okay, so there's no added tax to the cost. Whereas in Singapore, there's an added tax to the petrol.
But we are a free trade zone.
And if you're also encouraging people to take public transport and not buy your own cars, then I don't see why there should be a surge in public transport prices. Hold that off, so people will take public transport.
During the COVID period or the pandemic period, people stay home most of the time. So transport suffers, but yet they came out recently with profits worth millions and millions of dollars. How is even that possible?
Prudent spending, control.
Oh, okay, okay.
No, but that's how a business should run. You must always
Lean and
find a
trim.
way. Lean and trim, being able to be smart in your decisions. And kudos for them to be able to make money, especially during this period. But again, I know we are a Singapore Inc. Can we, as a society, as a nation, as a government, find a way to better run, from a cost perspective? I was very happy when after many, many years, we now have the Pioneer Generation funding and stuff like that. So that really recognized the contributions and stuff. So that's a way of giving back to Singaporeans. And so we have Pioneer Generation, we have the Merdeka Generation. But can we have now something for Singaporeans? Yes, there were handouts, into the CPF and stuff like that. But I think in this time of need, this kind of suffering, we need to manage whatever cost we can manage.
But then again, if I were to be the government, you want us to help you, but till when?
It's a decision. But the prices are just so high now.
It should not be a spoon-feeding environment.
And you can just dip into the reserve for just that much. Once when it dries up, it dries up.
But that's what the reserves are for. Now it's a rainy day. Now it's a storm. And if we don't survive this storm, we might just lose a generation of companies, that were good, they were well run, but because of the pandemic, they suffered. And then now, even before they can try to recuperate, they get hit again by costs.
Or they might lose a generation of people with faith in them.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people, I think, from a mental illness, confidence, are we looking at this? Yes, it is a handout. It is a lifeline being thrown to you. But I think if you are the recipient, you receive this lifeline, you will work extra hard. For the government, for the people who have helped you. And I think mindsets will change. That we grow together, we suffer together, we recover together, and I think that will really change the whole fabric of society.
I think we can propose to the government on how to appease prospective voters. We can give them a wish list, and they go like, okay, I can do this A, B, C, D.
But it's only every election time.
Well, we can start now. They can start processing it. So at least if we don't get 10, we get 5. So there's still a win. Something like that. We should propose, because I got to think for so many people, right? So we help them with the thinking. We give them a wish list. But reduction of cost is definitely for our daily essentials.
Correct. I think we had the grants or the rebates during COVID that was given to landlords, but we didn't get much. The savings given to landlords didn't trickle down to us as tenants. How many billions of dollars was used to support the economy? Yes, we have your wages subsidy, your wages support and stuff. But if you divide it by the number of Singaporeans, by the value, the numbers don't match up.
So if you're at the tail end, you'll be lucky if you receive crumbs.
Yeah.
I don't think if you're at the tail end, you still receive something. If you're at the head, you are receiving something. It's just the body, the tenants, the businesses, because like Kevin says, it didn't trickle down. Whatever was given to the landlord did not trickle down, but your employees are still getting the benefits. As a business person, you're not. So it's almost like, why carry on? I just want to give up.
You see the number of empty shops, empty malls, hawker restaurants, hawker stalls that are gone. Many years in business, gone. It's quite sad, I mean, you would say it is a natural business cycle. People lose, people go up, but it is sad to see long history of businesses just disappear.
Three generational businesses gone.
Well, COVID has reset a lot of things into a level playing field. But then again, the moment it started moving forward, prices shot up, and we are not ready to equip ourselves with the new price war or the new price hike. What should be done? What can be done to buffer us or to equip us to go through this so-called this wave of price hike?
I think the key question I have is, what's the second half of the year going to be like? You have the prices here, and if I don't see it coming down, I don't see the economy improving as much, the second half of the year is going to be quite a shock also. I think we're all tired also. I'm tired. We've gone through 2.5 years of pandemic, and I think help from the government, like what you say, even be more kind in what they've already done. They've done a lot. I think will really go a long way. We need to look at our legislation, our companies, and have greater control and say, let's help Singaporeans and help more than just the vouchers.
Just like the rest of ASEAN countries, I would encourage the government to push a campaign where you go more local, where things are produced here. It should supposedly cheaper, supposedly better, and we push our own economy up. Yes, it's a small country, but then again, we have enough for certain areas or certain group of people, but we still need to go local. Then we can encourage a lot of people to be more creative, to try something new, to produce things locally, so that we would not depend on foreign countries for our daily supplies or essentials. So food security is important, and I think the government should look into it very strongly on how we produce our own food for our own people.
But we don't have the land, we don't have the resources.
We have enough money to buy lands anywhere outside the country. We can produce it there, bring it over. Singaporeans do it foreign land, bring it here back. Just like that, that will be our best exports. Like if you look into Philippines, what is their best export? You look into India, what would be their best export? You look into the US, you look into the Indonesians. What is our best exports? What is our best creative development here?
Yeah. I think that was a mistake that we made where from a food security we decided it's cheaper to buy overseas than to have it here, and that's why now they started to look at rooftop gardening, rooftop growing of plants,
Urban
urban
farming.
farming. I think that was the mistake that we had.
So when you make mistakes, I suffer,
Yeah,
or we suffer
unfortunate-
together.
We all
I
are
mean, it was
suffering
just a
lah.
question. It's a tricky question.
Yeah.
So
But,
we
yeah.
should look into, mistakes are there to be made. But we need to have the corrective measures. What corrective measures can be done that involve us together moving forward? Not just the government move and say, this is the path for you. We move forward together. I think that makes more sense.
And please stop taxing us.
Yes.
Uh,
And on that note, thank you very much.